Gardeners, it is time. It is just at the start of a new growing season. I'm super excited. By the end of this video, you're going to have a nice list of crops, nice, easy to grow, edible crops that you can sow during the month of February. And also in this video, I'm going to be revealing the biggest mistake that gardeners make in the month of February that I've also done in the past. So let's not let that happen this year. You want to start off with some legumes. Firstly, fava beans. Fava beans include broad beans and field beans. So easy to grow. They grow so quick. They're so delicious. They're one of the first kind of proper staple crops that come through in late May into June. You start harvesting these pods, absolutely delicious. And the other one is peas. Peas is just fantastic. You could either transplant them out, you could grow dwarf varieties and transplant them into hoop bed, grow them on in a polytunnel, but you've got mange 2, sugar snaps, garden peas. Oh, they're so delicious. I've missed them so much. It's one of the things I'm most excited about. I absolutely love to grow clumps of spring onions and just dot them around the garden. And so what I would recommend is to module sow them around mid to late February into individual modules, and then the following couple of months you just transplant them around the garden so you've always got spring onions on tap. Another crop is onions, but for me, I wouldn't call it cheating. It's just more convenient to grow onions from sets, and I can plant those in modules and they don't need any heat source whatsoever. I plant them in modules around mid-February, keep them inside, and then I transplant them outside, usually towards the end of March. Super easy. If you're looking for a great go-to variety, then I recommend Struon. Last year here in the self-sufficiency garden, we got an average of around 9 kilos per square metre, which is a lot of delicious onions. There's a lot of great leafy salad greens that you can start off to then transplant outside in March. You might want to just grow them under a fleece, but your things like mustards and lettuce and spinach, start them all off in February. And if you want to start expanding the types of leafy greens that you grow, then you could start off some kale as well and some Asturian tree cabbage to then transplant towards the end of March. And on the theme of cabbage, February is a great opportunity to just start sowing your spring cabbage. Now it is still February, so that's enough to get started on in terms of module seedlings to start the process that you'll then transplant from March onwards. March is where a lot of things happen, nice and busy. Now let's look at the crops that you would start off undercover to continue growing undercover, be it sowing direct or transplanting, so you can get some nice early harvest of those flavours, so you don't end up getting, say, all of your carrots all in one go. You can start to stagger them out along the growing season. First off, if you have a grow light and heat match, there's a couple of really important ones to start off in February, and those are going to be aubergines or eggplants, and also your peppers, mainly because they take quite a while to grow. Now, I don't like to start off tomatoes in February using grow lights because they grow really quickly, and I find that starting off my tomatoes in March, they work really well. February, the plants feel a bit weak. March, they turn out really well. They all catch up, so don't worry about tomatoes. But peppers and aubergines, get those started. In my climate, I will then plant out pepper and aubergine seedlings into a polytunnel, and I'll grow them undercover so I can guarantee a crop. Now, because of the nature of these being lower growing, if you don't have a polytunnel, you can grow them really successfully in a low tunnel or hoop bed like what's behind me. One thing that I'd like to say is that you don't have to have an electrical heat mat to start off a lot of your seeds. If you have a hotbed, you can start off your seedlings there. You can use my HR10 module trays, and they just utilize the natural heat through the hotbed process to get a bunch of seedlings. For the rest of the crops, you don't need any heat or light source, provided that they're in a mini polytunnel or cold frame or a sunny windowsill, they're gonna be just fine. Let's talk about roots, and we're gonna start off with one of the absolute staples in the garden. Those are new potatoes. If you want early new potatoes, grow them in 30-35 litre tubs, plant 1 to 2 spuds per tub, and grow them either in like a sunny porchway or in a polytunnel or even in a hoop house, and you can plant other things underneath and around, and you'll be able to get your first harvest around end of May if you start them off in early February. They're just the first new potatoes of the season are always delightful. If you do have a polytunnel or hoop beds, then you can direct plant them. Just if you get particularly cold snaps during March, you might just need to put a little bit of covering or protection over a few of those coldest nights. One of the things that I get really excited about is the first kind of early harvests of crunch. Now you can get that with the peas that you either then transplant outside or decide to continue to grow on undercover. But I'm also talking about carrots and radish. Both of these can be direct sown undercover in February. I would also recommend, sticking with the root vegetable theme, I'd recommend a little bit of beetroot. Start them off in modules, transplant them in just a couple of pockets undercover, because most of the beetroot you're going to be sowing from March onwards outside, but something like golden beetroot, it just tastes so good. One of the lovely things that you can do is just have a little bit of something just to kind of quench that thirst at the start of the season. There's all these flavours that you're missing. Well, you can have a couple to begin with, just to kind of whet your appetite, to then enjoy the main harvest a month or two later. There is one crop though that you can plant directly outside in February, and that is sunchoke tubers. So if you're not growing sunchokes, try them, because even if you just grow them for ornamental, they are amazing. There's no real rules with what you absolutely must and mustn't sow or grow depending on whatever month. It's just about understanding the limitations of your climate, and that's basically it. Everything else is a lot of fun. Just before we go over the mistake to avoid this month, there's a couple of crops that I've left off because in comparison to the rest of the crops, they're a lot more tricky to grow. One of them is celery and also celeriac. This is a variety that I'm going to be attempting to grow. I always find it hard, but attempting to grow this year. It's called Blush. And this is from She Grows Veg. This is just a nice little friendly shout out. I've ordered myself some really beautiful looking varieties. Another one is an amaranth variety, which is called Molten Fire. I wonder what that looks like. Well, these packets come with a lovely little photo to show you. Can you imagine that in this garden this year? I'm excited. Another one is these jet black chili peppers. I'm also going to be growing some dwarf sunflowers here. And I'm constantly looking for new varieties to grow. So if you're looking for another seed supplier, as well as She Grows Veg, there's also Wales Seed Hub, which has a bunch of different rare heritage open pollinated varieties as well. Now the mistake to avoid in February is that you don't want annuals tunnel vision. You don't want to just, I know it's exciting, new growing season, it means, you know, tomatoes are going to be growing and all of the exciting things. Don't forget about perennials, because the best time to plant so many perennials, for example soft fruit and a lot of herbs and even a lot of ornamentals, is during the dormancy period. So as well, if you think about cost, the cheapest way to buy these, say soft fruit like gooseberries, is when they're bare rooted, because they're much easier to ship, they're much cheaper. Once it gets into the growing season, that's when all of those costs suddenly get quite expensive, and perennials are fantastic. So don't forget about perennials. My main focus in February is perennials, which is why I'm just doing a bit of seed sowing on the side to kind of get started. But really, February is a month of perennials. If you're looking to grow as much food from your garden or allotment this year as possible, then I can't recommend enough to pre-order my upcoming book, The Self-Sufficiency Garden. It is written as a practical book to make sure that you get the best productivity possible, but covers other angles like becoming self-sufficient in compost, so you can save a huge amount of money as well. There's a pre-order link down below, and it's going to guide you to truly maximize how much your garden can produce this year and beyond.